Well, for more on the refugee crisis, I'm joined now by Jeff Crisp. He's from the Refugee Studies Centre at Oxford University. Welcome to the programme. There is a humanitarian crisis happening on Europe's doorstep. How would you describe the decision by some countries to close their borders?
Well, unfortunately, what we see at the moment is complete chaos in Europe. There is no agreement on how to address this situation, which could have been predicted and planned for many months ago, but there was no planning, no advanced preparation. The decision of countries to close their borders to refugees is both morally wrong, but is also against international law. All of the countries of the European Union have signed the 1951 Refugee Convention, which means that they should allow refugees to enter their territories. But as we have seen over the past few days, this is no longer happening. And as you've just said, countries are closing their borders rather than admitting them to their territory. So at the moment, we have complete chaos and nobody really knows what's going to happen over the next days or weeks.
Some very strong language coming out of Hungary. Its Prime Minister has said that Europe's Christian identity is being endangered by Muslim refugees. What kind of impact are these comments likely to have, do you think?
Well, I think it's really unfortunate that a country such as Hungary, which experienced its own very major refugee crisis in 1956, when hundreds of thousands of people fled to neighbouring Austria, that a country with that history has now turned in such a negative way against refugees. And it's certainly not helping the kind of statements coming out from Hungary about the refugees and about the desire not to take in a Muslim population. This is, again, both morally wrong, but also contrary to the principles and purposes of the United Nations, of which Hungary is a full member.
Opinion is split and Europe's leaders are divided. What advice would you offer them?
Well, I think we need a much greater sense of coherence and unity, and unfortunately, as we've seen recently, that simply doesn't exist at the moment. But there are some very simple things that could be done to address this crisis. I think we need much greater assistance to neighbouring countries, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria and Iraq, for example, so that they can absorb the very large numbers of refugees that have made their way to those countries. We need more immediate humanitarian assistance for those who have already passed into Europe and who are living under very difficult conditions where they are. And also we need a meaningful peace process within Syria. Unfortunately, the Security Council, the purpose of which is to maintain international peace and security, has been completely deadlocked on the whole question of Syria. And without a meaningful peace process in sight, it's very difficult to imagine that the refugee crisis can be resolved anytime soon.
Okay.
I think it's almost certain
Jeff Crisp
that more
in
refugees
Oxford
will make their way to Europe.
Thank you very much for your time.